María de los Dolores Asúnsolo y López Negrete, known professionally as Dolores del Rio, was a Mexican actress, dancer and singer. With a career spanning more than 50 years, she is regarded as the first major female Latin American crossover star in Hollywood, with an outstanding career in American cinema in the 1920s and 1930s. She was also considered one of the most important female figures in the golden age of Mexican cinema. Del Rio is also remembered as one of the most beautiful actresses on screen of all time. After being discovered in Mexico, she began her film career in Hollywood in 1925. She had roles on a string of successful films, including Resurrection, Ramona and Evangeline. Del Rio came to be considered a sort of feminine version of Rudolph Valentino, a female Latin lover, in her years during the American silent era. With the advent of sound, she acted in a range of film genres, from contemporary crime melodramas to musical comedies and romantic dramas. Among her most successful films of that decade include Bird of Paradise, Flying Down to Rio and Madame du Barry. In the early 1940s, when her Hollywood career began to decline, Del Rio returned to Mexico and joined the Mexican film industry, which at that time was at its peak. When Del Rio returned to her native country, she became one of the more important stars of the golden age of Mexican cinema. A series of Mexican films starring Del Rio are considered classic masterpieces and helped boost Mexican cinema worldwide. Of them stands out the critically acclaimed María Candelaria. Del Rio remained active mainly in Mexican films throughout the 1950s. In 1960 she returned to Hollywood. During the next years she appeared in Mexican and American films. From the late 1950s until the early 1970s she also successfully ventured into theater in Mexico and appeared in some American TV series. Del Rio is now considered a mythical figure of American and Mexican cinema, and a quintessential representation of the female face of Mexico in the world. Life and career 1904–1924. Childhood, life during the Mexican Revolution and first marriage María de los Dolores Asúnsolo y López Negrete. María de los Dolores Asúnsolo y López Negrete de Martínez del Río, or Dolores Asúnsolo y López Negrete was born in Victoria de Durango, Mexico on August 3, 1904, daughter of Jesús Leonardo Asúnsolo Jacques, son of wealthy farmers and director of the Bank of Durango, and Antonia López Negrete, belonging to one of the richest families in the country, whose lineage went back to Spain and the viceregal nobility. Her parents were members of the Mexican aristocracy that existed during the Porfiriato. On her mother's side, she was a cousin of the filmmaker Julio Bracco and of actors Ramón Navarro and Andrea Palma. On her father's side, she was a cousin of the Mexican sculptor Ignacio Asúnsolo and the social activist and model María Asúnsolo. Additionally, was aunt of the also actress Diana Bracco, daughter of Julio Bracco, who caused controversy when during the Guadalajara International Film Festival FICG 26 in 2011, declared that Dolores del Rio had been a terrible actress. Dolores's family lost all its assets during the Mexican Revolution that spanned from 1910 to 1920. Durango aristocratic families were threatened by the insurrection that Pancho Villa was leading in the region. The Asúnsolo family decided to escape. Dolores's father decided to escape to the United States, while she and her mother fled to Mexico City in a train, disguised as peasants. In 1912, the Asúnsolo family reunited in Mexico City and lived under the protection of then-President Francisco I. Madero, who was a cousin of Antonia. About this she declared the following: "I was very young when my mother brought me to the capital to meet her cousin Don Panchito, as she affectionately called him, Madero, then President of the Republic, who would sit me on her knees and would give me a huge red balloon." In this stage of the revolution, she also lived the attack known as the 10 Tragic Days, carried out in February 1913, which consisted of a military coup to overthrow Francisco I. Madero of the Presidency of Mexico, commenting on the following: "The troops fought fiercely from the rooftops and the avenues, and on such occasions, when the danger increased, we took refuge in the hiding place on the mezzanine floor of my parents' house." Del Rio attended the St. Joseph Convent, located in Mexico City and where the nuns forced her and her fellows to speak French at all times. She also developed a great taste for dance, a taste that awakened her when her mother took her to one of the Russian dancers Anna Pavlova performances, where she was fascinated by seeing her dance and decided to become a dancer herself. Around this time, she had her first portrait done by painter Alfredo Ramos Martínez, and although in life she said that she had 12 years of age when he painted her, Martínez's work says that she was actually 11. Based on what she said, being 12 years old in her first portrait, 3 years after that when she had just turned 15, she married the millionaire writer and law degree Jaime Martínez del Rio, who was 18 years older than her. It was from him that she inherited her artistic surname and the one who allowed her to continue enjoying the socio-economic level to which she was used to. Her honeymoon with Jaime lasted 2 years and they carried it out traveling through Europe, where in a stop at Spain, Dolores danced for the kings of Spain, who were fascinated to see her perform a dance performance for the soldiers of the war in Morocco. Returning to Mexico, Jaime decided to dedicate himself to growing cotton at Hacienda Las Cruces, in Nazas, Durango. However, a resounding fall in the world cotton market in 1924, caused an economic crisis for both and had to settle in Mexico City under the economic protection of their respective families. For her part, she had to sell her jewelry to try to recover a bit of the fortune she had lost with her husband. In addition to this, Dolores arrived pregnant when they returned to the country and had complications that could not be overcome, which caused a miscarriage and after which the doctors recommended not to get pregnant again since it would be very dangerous, taking away the possibility of having children. 1925–1930. Beginnings in cinema and film debut in early 1925. The painter Adolfo Best Maugard, close friend of Dolores and her husband, visited their home and with him was an American filmmaker named Edwin Carey, an influential director at the First National Pictures. Carey was fascinated with Del Rio and got determined to have her, so he invited the couple to work in Hollywood. He convinced Jamie, saying he could turn his wife into a movie star, the female equivalent of Rudolph Valentino. Jamie thought that this proposal was a response to their economic needs. Deep down, he could also fulfill his old dream of writing screenplays in Hollywood. Breaking with all the canons of Mexican society at that time and against their family's wishes, with the exception of Dolores's mother, they journeyed by train to the United States to start a career in film within that country. They arrived to Hollywood on 27 August of that year, where Del Rio was contracted by Carey and he began to act as her agent, manager, producer and director. Her name was shortened to Dolores del Rio. Seeking to get her a wide publicity to get the public's attention, Carey made a report dedicated to Dolores in the major magazines in Hollywood which said, "Dolores del Rio, the heiress and first lady of the high Mexican society, has come to Hollywood with a cargo of shawls and combs valued at $50,000. She will debut in the film Joanna, led by her discoverer Edwin Carey." She made her film debut in Joanna, directed by Carey and released that year. In the film Del Rio plays the role of Carlota da Silva, a vamp of Spanish-Brazilian origin, but she appeared for only 5 minutes. While continuing with his advertising campaign for Del Rio, Carey placed her with a secondary role in the film High Steppers, starring Mary Astor. Carl Laemmle, the head of Universal Studios, interested in casting Del Rio to act in the comedy The Whole Town's Talking. These films were not big hits, but helped increase her profile with the movie-going public. Del Rio got her first starring role in the comedy Pals First, also directed by Carey, a lost film. The film director Raoul Walsh called Del Rio to cast her in the war film What Price Glory? The film was a commercial success, becoming the second highest grossing title of the year, grossing nearly $2 million in the United States alone. That same year, thanks to the remarkable progress in her career, she was selected as one of the WAMPA's Baby Stars of 1926, along with fellow newcomers Joan Crawford, Mary Astor, Janet Gaynor, Fay Wray and others. Carey, with the support of the United Artists, directed and produced Resurrection, based on the novel by Leo Tolstoy. Del Rio was selected as the heroine and Rod LaRocque starred as leading man. Due to the success of the film, Fox quickly began shooting The Loves of Carmen, also directed by Raoul Walsh. Fox Film called her to star in the film No Other Woman, directed by Lou Tellegen. When actress Renee Adore began to show symptoms of tuberculosis, Del Rio was selected for the lead role of the MGM film The Trail of '98, directed by Clarence Brown. The film was a huge success and brought favorable reviews from critics. Around the same time, she was hired by United Artists for the third film version of the successful novel Ramona, directed by Carey. The success of the film was helped by the same-name musical theme, written by L. Wolfe Gilbert and recorded by Del Rio. Ramona was the first United Artists film with synchronized sound. In late 1928, Hollywood was concerned with the conversion to sound films. On 29 March, at Mary Pickford's bungalow, United Artists brought together Pickford, Del Rio, Douglas Fairbanks, Charles Chaplin, Norma Talmadge, Gloria Swanson, John Barrymore, and D.W. Griffith to speak on the radio show The Dodge Brothers Hour to prove they could meet the challenge of talking movies. Del Rio surprised the audience by singing Ramona, proving to be an actress with skills for sound cinema. Although her career blossomed, her personal life was turbulent. Her marriage to Jamie Martinez ended in 1928. The differences between the couple emerged after settling in Hollywood. In Mexico she had been the wife of Jamie Martinez del Rio, but in Hollywood Jamie became husband of a movie star. The trauma of a miscarriage added to the marital difficulties and Del Rio was advised not to have children. After a brief separation, Dolores filed for divorce. 6 months later, she received news that Jamie had died in Germany. As if this were not enough, Del Rio had to suffer incessant harassment from her discoverer, Edwin Carey, who did not cease in his attempt to conquer her. Del Rio made her third film with Raoul Walsh, The Red Dance. Her next project was Evangeline, a new production of United Artists also directed by Carey and inspired by the epic poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The film was accompanied by a theme song written by Al Jolson and Billy Rose and played by Del Rio. Like Ramona, the film was released with a Vitaphone disc selection of dialogue, music and sound effects. Edwin Carey had ambitions to marry Del Rio, with the intent that they become a famous Hollywood couple. Carey prepared his divorce from his wife Mary Atkin and seeded false rumors in campaigns of his films. But during the filming of Evangeline, United Artists convinced Del Rio to separate herself artistically and professionally from Carey, who still held an exclusive contract with the actress. In New York, following the successful premiere of Evangeline, Del Rio declared to the reporters, "Mr. Carey and I are just friends and companions in the art of the cinema. I will not marry Mr. Carey." Eventually, she cancelled her contract with him. Furious, Carey filed criminal charges against Dolores. Advised by United Artists lawyers, Dolores reached an agreement with Carey out of court. In spite of this settlement, Carey started a campaign against her. In order to eclipse her, he filmed a new sound version of Resurrection starring Lupe Vélez, another popular Mexican film star and alleged rival of Del Rio. Having finally broken off professionally from Carey, Del Rio was prepared for the filming of her first talkie, The Bad One, directed by George Fitzmaurice. The film was released in June 1930 with great success. Critics said that Del Rio could speak and sing in English with a charming accent. She was a suitable star for the talkies. 1930 to 1943. Transition to sound films and decline in 1930. Del Rio met Cedric Gibbons, an art director at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and one of the most influential men in Hollywood, at a party at Hearst Castle. The couple began a romance and finally married on August 6, 1930. The Del Rio Gibbons were one of the most famous couples of Hollywood in the early 30s. They organized Sunday brunches in their Art Deco house at 757 Kingman Avenue in Pacific Palisades. Gibbons designed the interiors of the house. Shortly after her marriage, Del Rio fell seriously ill with a severe kidney infection. The doctors recommended long bed rest. This causes the end of her contract with United Artists. When she regained her health, she was hired exclusively by RKO Pictures. Her first film with the studio was Girl of the Rio, released in 1931, and directed by Herbert Brennan. Producer David O. Selznick called the filmmaker King Vidor and said, "I want Del Rio and Joel McCrea in a love story in the South Seas. I didn't have much of a story for the film, but be sure that it ends with the young beauty jumping into a volcano." Bird of Paradise was shot in Hawaii and Del Rio became a beautiful native. The film premiered on 13 September 1932 in New York, earning rave reviews. Bird of Paradise became somewhat controversial due to Del Rio's daring costumes, as well as a revealing swimming scene. This film was made before the production code was strictly enforced. As RKO got the result they expected, they quickly decided to have Del Rio do another film, a musical comedy directed by Thornton Freeland, Flying Down to Rio of 1933. In the film, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers first appeared as dance partners. It featured Del Rio opposite Fred Astaire in an intricate dance number called Orchids in the Moonlight. In this film, Del Rio became the first major actress to wear a two-piece women's bathing suit on screen. But after the premiere, RKO were worried about their economic problems and decided not to renew Del Rio's contract. Jack Warner offered her a starring role in 2 films for Warner Brothers. The first was the musical comedy Wonderbar, directed by Lloyd Bacon. Busby Berkeley was the choreographer and Al Jolson her co-star. Del Rio and Jolson were gradually stealing the show. Dolores's character grew, while the character of Kay Francis, the other female star of the film, was reduced. The film was released in March 1934 and was a success for Warner's. The second one was Madame du Barry with Del Rio as star and William Dieterle as director. Dieterle focused on her beauty with the help of an extraordinary cloakroom designed for Dolores by Ori Kelly. But Madame du Barry was a major cause of dispute between the studio and the Hays Code Office, primarily because it presented the court of Louis XV as a sex farce centered around Del Rio. The film was severely mutilated by censorship and was not the success which had been anticipated. Even so, the film is considered one of the most popular Del Rio's films in her period in Hollywood cinema. In the same year, Del Rio, along with Ramon Navarro and Lupe Vélez, attended a special screening of the Mexican film Que Viva Mexico. The film was directed by Sergei Eisenstein, and was accused of promoting communism in California with nationalist sentiment and socialist overtones. It was the first time that Del Rio was accused of being a communist in the United States, a circumstance that would eventually have consequences in her career inside the American film industry. Warner called her again in 1935 to star in another musical comedy called En Caliente, where she portrayed a sultry Mexican dancer who has an affair with the character of actor Pat O'Brien. Around the same time, she starred in I Live for Love, with Busby Berkeley as a director. The film had dance numbers and Berkeley focused on her glamour with a sophisticated wardrobe. The last film she made with Warner's was The Widow from Monte Carlo of 1936, which went unnoticed. With the support of Universal Studios, in 1937 Del Rio filmed The Devil's Playground opposite Chester Morris and Richard Dix. However, despite the popularity of the 3 stars, the film was a failure. Dolores would decide to emigrate and sign a contract with 20th Century Fox to star in 2 films with George Sanders. She appeared with him in Lancer Spy of 1937 and International Settlement of 1938. Both films were box office failures. This cinematographic failures caused her to focus on advertising, becoming known for advertisements in Lucky Strike and Max Factor. Cedric Gibbons used his influence with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and gained for Del Rio the main female role in the 1940 film The Man from Dakota. But despite his position in the studio, Gibbons was never able to help his wife achieve a higher profile, as the main figures of that company at the time were Greta Garbo, Norma Shearer, Joan Crawford and Jean Harlow. Studio executives admired Del Dolores's beauty, but her career did not interest them, as at the time, Latin stars had few opportunities to shine at the studio. She was put on a list entitled, Box Office Poison. The list was submitted to Los Angeles newspapers by an independent movie theater whose point was that these stars' high salaries and public prominence did not counteract the low ticket sales for their movies. Amid the decline of her career, that same year, Del Rio met actor and filmmaker Orson Welles at a party organized by Darryl Zanuck. The couple felt a mutual attraction and began a discreet affair, which caused the divorce between Dolores and Gibbons. While looking for ways to resume her career, she accompanied Welles in his shows across the United States, works on radio and performances at the Mercury Theatre. Del Rio was at his side during the filming and controversy of Citizen Kane. The film, considered a masterpiece today, caused a media scandal by directing open criticism against the media magnate William Randolph Hearst, who began to boycott Orson's projects. At the beginning of 1942, she started working on Journey into Fear with Norman Foster as director and Welles as producer. Her relationship with Welles, in the midst of the Citizen Kane scandal, somehow affected her, as her character was drastically reduced in the film. Nelson Rockefeller, in charge of the Good Neighbor policy, hired Welles to visit South America as an ambassador of goodwill to counter fascist propaganda about Americans. Welles left the film 4 days later and traveled to Rio de Janeiro as part of his goodwill tour. Welles, involved in filming the carnival in Rio de Janeiro, behaved promiscuously, and the news came soon to the United States. Offended and outraged, Del Rio decided to end her relationship with Welles through a telegram that he never answered. Weeks later, her father died in Mexico. Due to these personal and professional crises, she decided to return to Mexico, commenting, "Divorced again, without the figure of my father. A film where I barely appeared, and one where they were really showing me the way of the art. I wanted to go the way of the art. Stop being a star and become an actress, and that I could only do in Mexico. I wish to choose my own stories, my own director and cameraman. I can accomplish this better in Mexico. I wanted to return to Mexico, a country that was mine and I did not know. I felt the need to return to my country." 1943–1959. Returned to Mexico and renewed success. She had been sought by Mexican film directors since the late 1930s, but economic circumstances were not favorable for the entry of Del Rio to the Mexican cinema. She was a friend of Mexican artists, and maintained ties with Mexican society and cinema. After breaking off her relationship with Welles, Del Rio returned to Mexico. As soon as she returned to her country, Mexican director Emilio El Indio Fernández invited her to film Flor Silvestre. Fernández was her great admirer and he was eager to direct her. This was Del Rio's first Spanish-language film. The film gathers a successful film crew consisting of Fernández, the cinematographer Gabriel Figueroa, the screenwriter Mauricio Magdaleno and Del Rio and Pedro Armendariz as the stars. Subsequently, they filmed María Candelaria, the first Mexican film to be screened at the Cannes International Film Festival, where it won the Grand Prix, becoming the first Latin American film to do so. Fernández has said that he wrote an original version of the plot on 13 napkins while sitting in a restaurant. He was anxious because he was in love with Del Rio and could not afford to buy her a birthday present. Her third film with Fernández, Las Abandonadas, was a then controversial film where Del Rio plays a woman who gives up her son and falls into the world of prostitution. She won the Silver Ariel as Best Actress for her role in the film. Bugambilia was her fourth movie directed by Fernández. As Del Rio did not correspond to the director's love advances, Bugambilia filming became a torture for both and for the rest of the team, who had to endure the mood swings of the director and the constant threats of Del Rio leaving the film. When the film was completed in January 1945, Del Rio announced that she would never again work with El Indio Fernández. Del Rio filmed La Selva de Fuego, directed by Fernando de Fuentes. The script of this film came to her in error, because of a confused messaging. The film had been specially created for Maria Felix, another Mexican movie star of the day. Felix, meanwhile, received the script for Dizziness, a film originally created for Del Rio. When the two stars realized the mistake, they refused to return the scripts. Del Rio was fascinated by playing a different character, which also involved her in daring scenes with the Mexican actor Arturo de Cordova. From this time the press began speculating a strong rivalry between Del Rio and Felix. Del Rio plays twin sisters in the film La Otra, under Roberto Gavaldon's direction. It inspired the movie Dead Ringer, starring Bette Davis. In the film The Fugitive, Del Rio plays an indigenous woman who helps a fugitive priest. She was invited by the film director John Ford to play the role in an adaptation of the novel The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. Emilio Fernández also served as associate producer and Gabriel Figueroa was the cinematographer. The movie was filmed in Mexico. In the same period, she traveled to Argentina to film Story of a Bad Woman, a film adaptation of the Oscar Wilde's Lady Windermere's Fan, directed by Luis Saslovsky. Del Rio accepted working again with Emilio Fernández and her film team in the film La Malquerida. The film is based on the novel of the Spanish writer Jacinto Benavente. Del Rio gained good notices for her portrayal of Raymunda, a woman confronted by her own daughter for the love of a man. The role of her daughter was played by actress Columba Dominguez. Del Rio was directed again by Roberto Gavaldin in 2 films, The Little House and Desired. That same year, Del Rio's cousin, activist María Asúnsolo, asked her to sign a document for a conference for the world peace. Del Rio never imagined that said document would point her out again as a supporter of international communism. On this year she also met the American millionaire Louis A. Riley in Acapulco. Riley was known in the middle of Hollywood cinema in the 40s for being a member of the Hollywood Canteen, an organization created by movie stars to support relief efforts in World War II. At that time Riley was engaged in a torrid affair with Betty Davis. Del Rio and Riley started a romance. Del Rio starred in Doña Perfecta, based on the novel by Benito Pérez Galdós. For this work she won her 2nd Silver Ariel Award for Best Actress. Gavaldin directed her again in the film El Niño y la Niebla. Her portrayal of an overprotective mother with a mental instability attracted critical acclaim and she was honored with her 3rd Silver Ariel Award. In 1954, Del Rio was slated to appear as the wife of Spencer Trass's character in the 20th-century Fox film Broken Lance. The U.S. government denied her permission to work in the United States, accusing her of being sympathetic to international communism. The document signed by her cheering for world peace, as well as her links with figures openly communist and her past relationship with Orson Welles, had been interpreted in the United States as sympathy with communism. She was replaced in the film by Katie Jurado. She reacted by sending a letter to the U.S. government, stating, "I believe that after all this, I have nothing to reproach myself. I'm a woman who only wants to live in peace with God and with men." While her situation was being remedied in the United States, Del Rio accepted the proposal of filming in Spain another adaptation of a novel by Benavente, Señora Ama, directed by her cousin, the filmmaker Julio Bracco. Unfortunately, the prevailing censorship in the Spanish cinema caused the film to be seriously truncated during editing. In 1956, her political situation in the United States was resolved. She began to listen with interest to theatrical offerings. Del Rio was already thinking that the play Anastasia of Marcel Moret would be a good choice for her debut. To prepare for this new facet of her career, she engaged the services of Stella Adler as her acting coach. Del Rio debuted successfully at the theater on the Falmouth Playhouse in Massachusetts on July 6, 1956 and to continue with a tour of 7 other theaters throughout New England. She took advantage of her return to the United States and granted an interview to Luella Parsons to make clear her political position. "In Mexico we are worried and fighting against communism." In 1957, she was selected as vice president of the jury of the 1957 Cannes Film Festival. She was the first woman to sit on the jury. Mexican filmmaker Ismael Rodriguez brought Del Rio and Maria Felix together in the film La Cucaracha. The meeting of the 2 actresses, considered the main female stars of Mexican cinema, was a success at the box office. This same year, she married Louis Riley in New York after 10 years of relationship. They remained together until her death in 1983. 1960–1978. Returned to Hollywood and final roles in 1957. She debuted in television in the role of a Spanish lady in the American television series Schlitz Playhouse of Stars, with Cesar Romero. Del Rio and her husband founded their own production company called Producciones Visuales. And they produced numerous theater projects featuring Del Rio. Mexican writer Salvador Novo became the translator of her plays. Her first production in Mexico City was Oscar Wilde's Lady Windermere's Fan, which she had made as a film in Argentina a decade earlier. She toured Mexico in the play, an enterprise that was both financially and critically successful, and she later took it to Buenos Aires. Others of her successful theater projects were The Road to Rome, Ghosts, Dear Liar, A Comedy of Letters, La Voyante, The Queen and the Rebels and The Lady of the Camellias. Del Rio returned to Hollywood after 18 years. She was hired by Fox to play the role of the mother of Elvis Presley's character in the film Flaming Star, directed by Don Siegel. She appeared in John Ford's Cheyenne Autumn, released in 1964. Her last Mexican film, Casa de Mujeres. Around the same time, the Italian filmmaker Francesco Rosi invited her to be part of the movie More Than a Miracle with Sophia Loren and Omar Sharif. She played Sharif's character's mother. She also appeared in the TV shows The Dinah Shore Chevy Show, the TV movie The Man Who Bought Paradise, I Spy and Branded. In 1968, Del Rio first performed on Mexican television in an autobiographical documentary narrated by her. Her last appearance on television was in a 1970 episode of Marcus Welby, M.D. Del Rio's last film appearance was in The Children of Sanchez, directed by Hall Bartlett and starring Anthony Quinn. She made a brief appearance playing the grandmother. Death in 1978. She was diagnosed with osteomyelitis, and in 1981, with hepatitis B following a contaminated injection of vitamins. She also suffered from arthritis. In 1982, Del Rio was admitted to Scripps Hospital, La Jolla, California, where hepatitis led to cirrhosis. On April 11, 1983, Dolores del Rio died from liver failure at the age of 78 in Newport Beach, California. It is said that the day she died, an invitation to attend the Oscars was sent to her. She was cremated and her ashes were moved from the United States to Mexico, where they were buried at the Panteón de Dolores in Mexico City, Mexico, specifically on the Rotunda of Illustrious Persons. Personal life, public image and personality. Del Rio always projected a special elegance with her beauty, more than just a Latin bombshell, such as other actresses like Lupe Vélez. Del Rio's intrinsic elegance was apparent even off-screen. Del Rio strongly identified with her Mexican heritage despite her growing fame and her transition to modernity. She also felt strongly about being able to play Mexican roles and bemoaned the fact that she was not cast in them. She never relinquished her Mexican citizenship and said in 1929 that she wanted to play a Mexican woman and show what life in Mexico really is. No one has shown the artistic side, nor the social. Del Rio was considered one of the prototypes of female beauty in the 1930s. In 1933, the American film magazine Photoplay conducted a search for the most perfect female figure in Hollywood, using the criteria of doctors, artists and designers as judges. The unanimous choice of the selective arbiters of female beauty was Del Rio. The question posed by the search for the magazine and the methodology used to find the most perfect female figure reveal a series of parameters that define femininity and feminine beauty at that particular moment in the U.S. history. Larry Carr said Del Rio's appearance in the early 1930s influenced Hollywood. Women imitated her style of dress and makeup. A new kind of beauty occurred, and Del Rio was the forerunner. She is also considered the pioneer of the two-piece swimsuit. According to Austrian-American filmmaker Joseph von Sternberg, stars such as Del Rio, Marlene Dietrich, Carole Lombard and Rita Hayworth helped him to define his concept of the glamour in Hollywood. When Del Rio returned to Mexico, she radically changed her image. In Hollywood, she had lost ground to the modernity of the faces. In Mexico, she had the enormous fortune that filmmaker Emilio Fernández emphasized Mexican indigenous features. She did not come to Mexico as the Hollywood, Latin bombshell, transforming her makeup to highlight her indigenous features. Del Rio defined the change that her appearance suffered in her native country. "I took off my furs and diamonds, satin shoes and pearl necklaces, all swapped by the shawl and bare feet." Del Rio's contemporaries comment about her image. American actress Joan Crawford. Dolores became, and remains, as one of the most beautiful stars in the world. German-American actress and singer Marlene Dietrich. Dolores del Rio was the most beautiful woman who ever set foot in Hollywood. Irish-British playwright George Bernard Shaw. The two most beautiful things in the world are the Taj Mahal and Dolores del Rio. Fashion designer Elsa Schiaparelli. I have seen many beautiful women in here, but none as complete as Dolores del Rio. Mexican painter Diego Rivera. The most beautiful, the most gorgeous of the West, East, North and South. I'm in love with her as 40 million Mexicans and 120 million Americans who can't be wrong. Mexican novelist Carlos Fuentes. Garbo and Dietrich were women turned into goddesses. Del Rio was a goddess about being a woman. American photographer Jerome Zerbe. Dolores del Rio and Marlene Dietrich are the most beautiful women I've ever photographed. Australian-American costume designer Ori Kelly. I draped her naked body in jersey. She wanted no underpinnings to spoil the line. When I finished draping her, she became a Greek goddess as she walked close to the mirror and said, "It is beautiful." Gazing into the mirror, she said in a half-whisper, "Jesus, I am beautiful." Narcissistic? Probably yes, but she was right. She looked beautiful. Mexican cinematographer Gabriel Figueroa. I have had great beauties in front of my camera. But the facial bones of Dolores del Rio are incomparable. That has been said many times. What has not been said is that she had a privileged smooth skin, a beautiful brown color and a body really perfect. American actor and director Orson Welles. Del Rio represented the highest erotic ideal with her performance in the film Bird of Paradise. Del Rio herself commented on her face and image. Take care of your inner beauty, your spiritual beauty, and that will reflect in your face. We have the face we created over the years. Every bad deed, every bad fault will show on your face. God can give us beauty and genes can give us our features, but whether that beauty remains or changes is determined by our thoughts and deeds. In 1952, she was awarded the Neiman Marcus Fashion Award and was called the best dressed woman in America. Relationships. Regardless of her marriages at different times in her life, she was romantically linked with actor Errol Flynn, filmmaker John Farrow, writer Eric Maria Remarque, film producer Archibaldo Burns, and actor Tito Junco. Her relationship with Orson Welles ended after 4 years largely due to his infidelities. Rebecca Wells, the daughter of Wells and Rita Hayworth, expressed her desire to travel to Mexico to meet Dolores. In 1954, Dolores received her at her home in Acapulco. After their meeting, Rebecca said, "My father considered Dolores the great love of his life. She is a living legend in the history of my family." According to Rebecca, until the end of his life, Wells felt for Del Rio a kind of obsession. Mexican filmmaker Emilio Fernández was one of her admirers. He said that he had appeared as an extra in several films of Dolores in Hollywood just to be near her. The beauty and elegance of Del Rio had impressed him deeply. Fernández said, "I fell in love with her, but she always ignored me. I adored her. Really, I adored her." The house of Del Rio at Coyoacán was called La Escondida, and she also spent her days in Acapulco. Both homes became a meeting point for personalities like Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo, Maria Felix, Merle Oberon, John Wayne, Edgar Neville, Begum Habiba Aga Khan, Nelson Rockefeller, the Duke of Windsor and Wallace Simpson, Princess Soraya of Iran and more. There are many anecdotes about her rivalry with Lupe Vélez. Del Rio never understood the quarrel that Vélez kept with her inquiring to meet her because it hurt to be ridiculed by the Mexican Spitfire. But the prestige of Del Rio was known and respected, and Vélez could not ignore this. Vélez wore spectacular costumes, but never reached Del Rio's supreme elegance. Vélez was popular, had many friends and devoted fans, but never attended the social circle in Hollywood, where Del Rio was accepted without reservations. Vélez spoke ill of Del Rio, but she never mentioned her name in an offensive way. Vélez evidently resented Del Rio's success during the years in which both met in Hollywood. There was media speculation about a strong rivalry between Del Rio and Maria Felix, another diva of the Mexican cinema. Felix said in her autobiography, "With Dolores I don't have any rivalry. On the contrary. We were friends and we always treated each other with great respect. We were completely different. She refined, interesting, soft on the deal, and I'm more energetic, arrogant and bossy." Felix said in another interview, "Dolores del Rio was a great lady. She behaved like a princess. A very intelligent and very funny woman. I appreciate her very much and I have great memories of her." Philanthropy and cultural ambassador in the late 1950s, she became a main promoter of the Acapulco International Film Review, serving as host on numerous occasions. In 1966, Del Rio was co-founder of the Society for the Protection of the Artistic Treasures of Mexico with the philanthropist Felipe García Barraza. The society was responsible for protecting buildings, paintings and other works of art and culture in Mexico. On January 8, 1970, she, in collaboration with other renowned Mexican actresses, founded the union group, Rosa Mexicano, which provided a day nursery for the children of the members of the Mexican Actors Guild. Del Rio was responsible for various activities to raise funds for the project and she trained in modern teaching techniques. She served as the president from its founding until 1981. After her death, the day nursery adopted the official name of Estancia Infantil Dolores del Rio, and today remains in existence. In 1972, she helped found the cultural festival Cervantino in Guanajuato. Her deteriorating health led her to cancel 2 television projects in 1975. The American television series Who'll See the Children? And Mexican telenovela Ven Amigo. In her work in supporting children she became a spokeswoman of the UNICEF in Latin America and records a series of television commercials for the organization. In 1976 she served as president of the jury in the San Sebastian Film Festival. In 1978 the Mexican-American Institute of Cultural Relations and the White House gave Dolores a diploma and a silver plaque for her work in cinema as a cultural ambassador of Mexico in the United States. During the ceremony she was remembered as a victim of McCarthyism. At the age of 76, Del Rio appeared on the stage of the Palace of Fine Arts Theater the evening of October 11, 1981 for a tribute at the 25th San Francisco International Film Festival. During the ceremony, filmmakers Francis Ford Coppola, Mervyn Leroy and George Cukor spoke, with Cukor declaring Del Rio the First Lady of American Cinema. This was her last known public appearance. In 1982, she was awarded the George Eastman Award, given by George Eastman House for distinguished contribution to the art of film. Legacy Del Rio was the first Mexican actress to succeed in Hollywood. In her wake others followed including Lupe Vélez, Katy Jurado, Lupita Tovar and Pina Pellicer. In recent years other Mexican stars that have achieved a place in Hollywood include Salma Hayek, Isa Gonzalez, Melissa Barrera, Adriana Barraza and Ana de la Reguera. In art and literature the physical characteristics of Del Rio made her a figure of veneration even beyond death. From a young age, Del Rio had the intelligence to know how to surround herself with personalities of the intellectual environment. The Hollywood myth placed Del Rio in another area, as she became one of the women related to the renaissance of Mexican culture and customs. The face of Del Rio was also the object of veneration for many artists who shaped her image on their canvases. In 1916, when Del Rio was 11 years old, she was first portrayed by Alfredo Ramos Martínez, a very popular artist among Mexican high society. In the 1920s, Del Rio was also embodied in the canvases of Mexican painters Roberto Montenegro and Ángel Zaraga. In 1938, the actress was portrayed by her close friend, the famous Mexican artist Diego Rivera. The portrait was made in New York. It was Del Rio's favorite portrait and occupied a special place in her home in Mexico. Rivera also captured the image of Dolores in some of his paintings and murals, highlighting La Vendeduría de Flores, La Palera and La Creación. In this last mural, located in the Colegio de San Ildefonso in Mexico City, the actress represents justice. In 1941, Del Rio was also portrayed by the famous Mexican muralist José Clemente Orozco. The portrait was made at the request of Orson Welles. Unfortunately, when the artist painted the portrait he was already losing his sight. Del Rio said, "He painted his tragedy on my face." Although the portrait was not liked by the actress, it had a very important place in her home. Other artists who recorded her image in her paintings were Miguel Covarrubias, Rosa Rolanda, Antonieta Figueroa, Francis Goner Goshman, Adolfo Best Maugard and John Carroll. In 1970, the Instituto Nacional de Bellas Artes y Literatura, the Mexico Screen Actors Guild, the Humane Society of the Artistic Treasures of Mexico and the Motion Picture Export Association of America paid her a tribute titled Dolores del Rio in the art in which her main portraits and a sculpture by Francisco Zúñiga were exhibited. In her will, Del Rio stipulated that all her artworks be donated to the National Institute of Fine Arts and Literature of Mexico, for display in various museums in Mexico City, including the National Museum of Art, the Museum of Art Carrillo Gil and the home studio of Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo. Del Rio was the model of the statue of Evangeline, the heroine of Longfellow's romantic poem located in St. Martinville, Louisiana. The statue was donated by Del Rio, who played Evangeline in the 1929 film. Poet Salvador Novo wrote her a sonnet and translated all her stage plays. She inspired Jaime Torres Boadet's novel La Estrella de Dia, published in 1933, which chronicles the life of an actress named Piedad. Vicente Leñero was inspired by Del Rio to write his book, Señora. Carlos Pellicer also wrote her a poem in 1967. In 1982, Del Rio and Maria Felix were parodied in the novel Orchids in the Moonlight, Mexican comedy by Carlos Fuentes. Other authors who wrote her poems were Xavier Villaurrutia, Celestino Gorostiza and Pita Amor. Carlos Monsiváis and Jorge Ayala Blanco also made her a tribute book on the occasion of the Ibero-American Film Festival of Huelva, in 1983. The book contains an essay by Monsiváis entitled Responsibilities of a Face. Vicente Leñero also pays tribute to the book Señora. After her death, her photo archive was given to the Carso Center for the Study of Mexican History by Louis Riley. Memorial She has her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 1630 Vine Street in recognition of her contributions to the motion picture industry. Dolores del Rio also has a statue at Hollywood La Brea Boulevard in Los Angeles, designed by Catherine Hardwicke, built to honor the multi-ethnic leading ladies of the cinema together with Mae West, Dorothy Dandridge and Anna May Wong. Del Rio has also a mural painted on the east side of Hudson Avenue just north of Hollywood Boulevard painted by the Mexican-American artist Alfredo de Batic. Del Rio is one of the entertainers displayed in the mural, Portrait of Hollywood, designed in 2002 by the artist Eloy Torres in the Hollywood High School. Del Rio's memory is honored in 3 monuments in Mexico City. The first is a statue located in the second section of Chapultepec Park. The other 2 are busts. One is located in the Parque Hendido. And the other is in the nursery that bears her name. In Durango, Mexico, her hometown, an avenue is named after her, Boulevard Dolores del Rio. Since 1983, the Society Periodistas Cinematográficos de Mexico has been giving the Diosa de Plata Award for the Best Dramatic Female Performance. In 1995, fashion designer John Galliano realized a tribute to Del Rio in his fall-winter collection Dolores. In 2005, on what was believed to be the centenary of her birth, her remains were moved to the Rotunda de las Personas Ilustres in Mexico City. On 3 August 2017, the 113th anniversary of her birth, Google released a Google Doodle created by Google artist Sophie Diao honoring Del Rio. After her death, actor Vincent Price used to sign his autographs as Dolores del Rio. When asked why, the actor replied, "I promised Dolores on her deathbed that I would not let people forget about her." Characterizations Chester Gould, the creator of Dick Tracy, took Dolores del Rio as inspiration to create Texie Garcia, one of Tracis' main enemies. She appeared in vintage footage in the Woody Allen's film Zelig. She was played by the actress Lucy Cohu in the TV film RKO 281 in 1999. Del Rio is one of the Mexican celebrities honored in a cameo in the Disney Pixar animated movie Coco in 2017.